This is Frank Islam, Chairman and CEO of FI Investment Group and your host of Washington Current Review, where we interview leading voices from business and politics that impact you, the viewer. Today, our guest is Sam Arora. Sam is a member of the Maryland House of Delegates, and he's going to talk about trade, investment, legislations, and commerce. And Sam is a good friend of mine, and he has been and continues to be a source of inspiration to all of us. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for what you do for our country.
Frank, thanks for having me. It's really nice to sit next to
And thank you for coming.
You bet. My pleasure.
We appreciate that very much. Now, you just went to India with, if I remember correctly, with Governor O'Malley.
That's right. That's right.
And you represented the great state of Maryland, where I live.
Yes, indeed.
Tell me all about it.
Sure.
Tell me what happened, what kind of investment occurred, what kind of commerce, what kind of trade, and what did Governor O'Malley got from India?
Yeah, I tell you, it was a wild trip. We went.
It was a wild trip.
End of November, beginning of December. It was a 5-day blitz. We did Hyderabad, Mumbai, and Delhi. We hit not only other companies, or introduced Maryland and Indian companies together, but we also talked to a lot of government officials, beginning to open the door to doing business in India for Maryland companies. As you know, India is growing at an explosive rate. This is a huge opportunity for Maryland companies, and we went to help grease those skids.
Grease those skids.
That's right.
So did you get anything in return when you came back here?
Yeah, we brought back just in those 6 days, we brought back about $65 million.
$65 million.
1 week. And that's just the beginning.
That's just the beginning.
Yeah.
So do you see a lot of hope and opportunity
I do.
for the state of Maryland, and especially, if so, in what areas?
Sure.
I know pharmaceutical products and health services,
Absolutely.
those are pretty good,
Yeah.
and IT. So what area do you think you see a brighter horizon in terms of relationship between India and United States,
yeah.
and in particular the state of Maryland?
Sure. And you know that Barack Obama said, our president, said that the partnership between India and the U.S. will be the defining partnership of the 21st century.
He sure did say that.
He did, and part of that's going to be trade. So Maryland, we have the highest percentage of PhDs and graduate degree people in the country. So we are at a competitive advantage for the innovative technology and sort of high-tech sectors. So we're talking biotechnology, IT, but really even some brick-and-mortar stuff. Some of the deals we made were with construction companies. So we really are opening doors to great mutual gain for India and Maryland.
You receive a good reception from the people who are what I consider a New Delhi elite.
You know, many people, not surprisingly, had never heard of Maryland.
Never heard of the state of Maryland.
Yeah.
Did you tell them it's right across the river from Washington, D.C.?
There you go. And when we told them we're next to Washington, D.C. and the federal regulatory agencies, and we have the Port of Baltimore, a deep water port if you want to ship stuff, eyes were open, and they say, we would like to do business with you. Please introduce us to your company. So we made those direct connections.
That's great. That's a wonderful thing to do. You did a great service to our country, to our
Thank you.
great state of Maryland. As you know, there are 3 Indian Americans in the Maryland House of Delegates. You just mentioned Kumar Barve, who went with you.
That's right, yeah.
Aruna Miller, who also went over there, and you. So what's it like to be, you are first an American, and then you are Indian American.
That's right.
And you love this country, you care deeply about this nation, and you serve our nation. So the question is, what's it like to be 3 of you?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a lonely voice in the wood?
You know, Maryland has more Indian Americans in its legislature than any other state. We're the only one to have more than one. It's quite nice. I think Delegate Aruna Miller and I have benefited greatly from the mentorship of our majority leader, Kumar Barve. And, you know, we always joke that when 2 of us are together, that's quorum. That's the majority of the Indian American caucus. We're also good friends, the 3 of us, and I think that has served each of us well.
So, but you also represent an Indian American community.
Yes.
So do you talk about the success of the Indian American community in the state of Maryland and what they can do to help the Governor O'Malley?
Yeah, and I think that's an excellent point. I think the reason you see 3 Indian Americans in our legislature is because of the success of the Indian American community. There are very successful entrepreneurs like yourself, Frank,
well, thank you.
And physicians and a number of different sectors, and I think having Indians in leadership, in government leadership, is a symptom of that success. And I think what we do in addition to representing our constituents in our communities, we also represent the Indian community as a greater entity. And I tell Indians around the state, if you need anything, don't hesitate to call me. I feel like, in a way, we're family.
And what district do you represent in the state of Maryland?
Absolutely. I'm District 19, which is Central Montgomery County.
Central Montgomery County.
That's right.
So what's your email address so people can contact you,
Great
Sam?
idea. Anyone can contact me by emailing info@samarora.com.
I hope you guys got it. That's wonderful. As you probably know, the Indian American community is very active right now in the politics.
Yes.
So they're getting a seat on the table, so they make sure their voices are heard. And there are two Indian American governors, Nikki Haley,
Right.
as well as Bobby Jindal, one from Louisiana, one from the state of North Carolina. Both are Republicans. So, and there are a lot more Indian Americans running for the Congress as well,
Right.
and legislation. How do you see the future of Indian in government and politics looks like it?
I tell you, that's a great question, Frank. And we're seeing Indians running for office at greater numbers than we ever have before and succeeding. And I think that's also a symptom of the maturation of the Indian American community. Gosh, just look on TV. You can't turn on a primetime show without seeing an Indian American character. And they're not the stereotypes anymore. They're just normal Americans. And I think the more Indians are perceived as average Americans, the more success we'll see. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw an Indian American maybe president in the not too distant future.
And I'm sure the people that we're talking about, Nikki Haley, as well as the Governor Jindal, there could be good potential resources for America, as well as they can represent our country, and there could be a candidate for the president in the near future.
It's possible, and yeah.
It is possible. Look at the story of President Obama.
That's a great, yeah.
That's a great story. That's something that we can look up and say, you know what, he made it, I can make it too.
Yeah, and it's good to have, I think, Democrats and Republicans who are Indian American, because it shows we're not just of one mind, but we are a community, and we have different, different views, different opinions.
But we all have a shared goals, shared responsibility, and shared sacrifices.
That's
Correct?
right. Well said.
We are all Americans.
That's right.
Whether we are Republicans, Independent, or Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
We are all working together for our constituency, for our country. We love and care deeply.
Yes, well said.
So now that you're House of Delegates, you go there, and what are the biggest issue that's facing the Maryland this year? In addition to that, since when you're on the same topic discussing with it, what have been your success in terms of legislations where you have made your mark?
Right. As you know,
were you about to make the mark?
Yeah. Well, as you know, Maryland, like many states, is suffering fiscally. We're having a hard time with our budget. We have to close a $1 billion gap, and that is going to be the biggest issue facing us. So what I'm working on are closing some of our tax loopholes and pushing forward legislation that will create jobs. I'm also, as an attorney, I sit on the House Judiciary Committee, so I focus also on public safety. You'll see me this year introducing bills to require the use of seatbelts in vehicles, which we do somewhat in Maryland, but not fully, and also get guns out of the hands of dangerous criminals.
So creating the jobs, let's talk about, which is very important right now for our nations. What kind of things state of Maryland is involved in creating the jobs?
Right. Now, part of it's going to be through tax structure, and that's going to be tough.
So giving incentive.
Absolutely.
Do you have any plans or policies possibly talking about in terms of the tax reform also, the corporate tax reform, and the personal tax reform as well?
That's going to be on the table. Now, Governor O'Malley just put forward a budget that really squeezes the middle class, unfortunately, and that was one way to solve our budget gap, but I think all options are on the table right now is what I'm hearing. What I would like to see is a tax code that is fair, something that allows people to thrive and helps us to close the gaps in our budget that we have. And part of it's also going to be helping get out of the way when government can let businesses like biotechnology firms thrive, and giving tax credits to incentivize them to go out and be creative. That's a good step. And I'm working to help reauthorize our biotech tax credit in Maryland as a co-sponsor.
You're getting some traction? I
think we're hearing a lot of people getting on board with that.
Yeah. What will you be working on this legislative session?
Well, now, in addition to the seatbelt and gun bills I mentioned, I'm also trying to close a loophole in our business trust law, which allows millions of dollars each year to escape taxation in a bit of a shelter that is just inadvertent. when we drafted the original law creating this tax code, we forgot 4 words. And because of that, millions of dollars have gone uncollected. And I think that's one step I'll be taking.
And what is that 4 word we're talking about here?
Federally adjusted gross income.
Federally adjusted gross
We
income.
forgot to define that.
You did not define that.
Well, I guess this stems back since 1996. We just have never been able to tax it in Maryland, and we surely intended to. So it ended up being a loophole, and it seems sort of silly, Frank, because it's a small bill, but $1 million here, $1 million there, and pretty soon it adds up to real money, doesn't it?
No question about that. So those are issues that you're currently working on the legislative
That's right, yes.
sessions. Is the session active right now?
That's right, yes. The sessions began, I believe, January 11th, and it's going on until mid-April. So we 90-day session in Maryland.
So is this a full-time job for you to be there between this January to April?
I tell you, it ends up being very full-time. I mean, I start working around 7 or 8 in the morning and stop working about 10 or 11 in the evening. So it can be very demanding during that period. Now, when we go after April, it's technically a part-time job, but it's one of those ones that it's about 40 hours a week during the off-season.
Is that right?
Yeah.
40 hours a week?
Yeah.
And during the session, it's about, like, what, 80 hours a week?
I'd say it's more like 80 hours. And I tell you, there are so many good, hard-working men and women, not just the members, the elected members, but those staff. Many of those people are quite young, and this is some of their first experiences in government, and they keep the Maryland government running by their hard work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Those civil servants you're talking about.
That's right, yes.
They definitely keep the machine grinding.
Yes, they do.
And churning,
yep.
Right? Now, we hear a lot of competition between Maryland and Virginia,
yeah.
Sam. And sometimes Virginia does win because they give a lot of incentives
right.
for the companies to locate here. So how's Maryland doing in terms of competition?
I tell you, Frank, we could be doing a lot better. And
I think so.
Yeah, I think so. And I think sometimes we don't have to go after the same fish that Virginia's going after. Maryland.
Right. You have a discriminator. Mm-hmm. And that's what you should be talking about. There's something you can do that Virginia cannot do.
I think, Frank, I think that's exactly right. And I think we are better poised than Maryland to go after the biotechnology community.
Exactly.
Not just in Virginia. We should take it from North Carolina, from California. Maryland's a great place to live. As you know, you live in Maryland. We live there. We can be attracting these companies. I think we need to be trying a heck of a lot harder.
In addition to giving incentive, you have a discriminator, you got the workforce, you got the skilled workforce, you got the most productive labor force.
Exactly right.
And plus the fact you have the people who got the skills, as you mentioned, the PhDs and masters, that Virginia, in some cases, lacks it. And
in addition to that, we have the #1 public education system in the entire U.S. in Maryland for the 4th year in a row. We're ranked #1. People want to move to our state to send their kids to our schools.
What about these taxes that Virginia talks about? We have lower taxes and Maryland has higher taxes.
Now, that's true. Now, Marylanders demand a high level of service, so we do have a fair share of taxes being paid. And I think one thing we're doing this year is looking at how to tax most fairly.
Good.
And not penalize those who can take it least.
Well, thank you very much,
Frank,
Sam, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciated that.
I love being here.
Thank you for what you do for our nation, for our country.
Thank you.
And that is our show. This is Frank Islam wishing you a great week. Thank you for watching.